Hey everybody, this is Joe Pace, and this is how you can handstand before you can handstand. So that might not make any sense. I totally get it, and I want to help it make sense for you. Handstand, in my opinion, is balancing all of your body weight on your hands. That can mean a lot of things. Doesn't necessarily need to mean you're like a complete pencil with your whole body in a straight line, okay? That's one version of handstand. There are so many other ways and so many other things you can do to balance weight, all of the weight of your body on your hands, that it actually makes the full pose a little bit less interesting because there's so much other stuff that you can do. And there are 3 principles that I want to give you and 3 things that you can use when you start thinking about how can I actually do handstand without doing the full leg over the head, straight leg pose version of handstand. And those 3 things are lower your center of gravity, widen your center of gravity, and use a support system. Those are the 3 things. Let's get into them. The first one, lower your center of gravity. A taller structure has a higher center of gravity. And when there's a higher center of gravity, a lot more support needs to be in place to keep that center of gravity balanced. When we lower our center of gravity, it's a lot easier to control because we don't have as much height to control. You can imagine a massive skyscraper versus a house. Houses aren't moving as much, right, during an earthquake as a huge skyscraper might. Obviously, engineers are there to engineer all this stuff, and I'm certainly not an engineer, but the principle makes sense to me, okay? So with a lower center of gravity, we're able to control the pose more. One thing to think about, and one way to apply this, is thinking about what's going on with your legs. So pretty much everything from your waist up, or when you're upside down, from your waist down, is non-negotiable. You really can't do anything with your upper body in handstand that's different across different versions of handstand, but you can do a lot of stuff with your legs. And when you use your legs wisely, you can do handstand when you can't do handstand. Here's what I mean. Arms are always going to be completely locked out. Hands are always going to be under the shoulders. You're always stacking shoulders over elbows over wrists. That's completely going to happen every time. That's not negotiable. Index fingers are parallel. Your fingers are spread wide, so you have the biggest, widest base below this big structure you're trying to control. Now, lowering your center of gravity means the knees do not need to be straight. Here are a few options. Bend your knees, look forward, tuck up, and tuck up. My center of gravity is lower. This is so much easier to control than the full straight legs. Another way to do it, 2 bent knees. Bend this one leg, I'm kicking up. Both my knees bend simultaneously, and I'm balancing here. You'll notice my legs are lower to the ground. It's a lot easier to control. And then I can come down. So that's lowering the center of gravity. The second, widening the center of gravity. So there's a combination of these 2 things going on in any version of handstand, but you can almost imagine this one like a person who walks on the high wire or the high line with a big wide pole. This is a widening of the center of gravity, so it makes it easier to stay on that single line. Same exact principle applies in handstand. The number one principle and the number one thing that you're gonna do is keep your knees extended but not overhead. Okay, if my legs are extended, my knee is fully extended, and I don't have it over my head, it's widening the center of gravity. There's no other way to do it. Okay, so you can do that front and back, or you can do it side to side. I'll show you front and back first. When you kick up, you're thinking about getting the top leg past vertical. You're thinking about getting your bottom leg extending back to about 9 o'clock. So if my top leg is 1 o'clock, my back leg is 9 or 10 o'clock, okay? Thinking about it like hands on a clock. Upper body non-negotiable, kick up. I have a wider center of gravity. My legs are wider, my knees are straight. I can ultimately work towards bringing the legs together and then maybe switching sides, okay? And then coming back down. The other way is side to side. So this one is, for me, in my body, the easiest one to hold for a long time, and I really enjoy doing it. Honestly, when I'm practicing handstand, this is the version that I go to when I just want to balance weight on my hands, just because it's easier. I'm not so worried about the legs over my head. I just want to get the legs wide, hang out on my hands for a little while. To get into it, it's called a straddle jump or a straddle press. A jump would be actually jumping. A press involves shifting weight into your hands first and then just lifting the legs. I'll demonstrate the jump. So the arms are straight, again, non-negotiable. Shoulders over wrists, over elbows. And then from here, I bend my knees, and then I jump with my legs wide. And then from here, just balance. So now I have my center of gravity completely widened. I can hang out on my hands for much longer than if my legs were overhead. Final step, final one, use a support system. This gets back to another video that I've done about how we practice balance and duration separately when it comes to handstand, and then ultimately bring those two things together. This one is working on duration. The support system that you can use, you really have two choices. You have a wall if you're alone, or you have a person if you're not alone, if you have somebody. The wall is most likely going to be your best friend when it comes to handstand, not necessarily for alignment or technique or balance, but it's going to be there to build all of the strength in your upper body that you need to hold handstand for a longer period of time. A major part of all of my workouts is just getting to a wall, holding handstand, different leg variations, holding it at the wall. Okay, so I can demonstrate. If you start to feel comfortable just kicking forward and up like we were just talking about, getting to the wall shouldn't be an issue. You want to have the hands about 6 inches away from the wall, maybe 8 inches. And you're actually trying to get to the wall with the top leg. So I lift my back leg, I bend the bottom knee, I kick up, and then I'm here just holding, maybe drop the head, just holding the pose for as long as you can. Hands are directly underneath elbows, shoulders are right over the elbows. So I have that perfect stacked position that I can hold, so it's not as much muscular effort as it could be if my elbows were bent. Gently come down. So those are the three principles. You want to lower your center of gravity, you want to widen it, and then you also want to use a support system. Ultimately, as you work through all three of these things, your pose is going to become a lot cleaner. It's going to come a lot more in your control, and then ultimately you can work towards eliminating all three of those things, right? You're narrowing your center of gravity, you're making it taller, and you don't have a support system. Those are all three characteristics of a pure straight leg handstand in the middle of the room. Until you get there, use these three principles to make it a lot easier on yourself.